Hello, everybody. Thank you for being here today. I'm super excited to have Patricia from the Keystone Channel. Patricia and I are have been good friends. We've connected since a while back, and we've kept in touch. And I have been just since she started talking about doing something about her life and making changes, I've been trying to encourage her to do it, and she did it. And I am so proud of her that the story is absolutely such a beautiful story of bravery, of courage, of everything. So I just knew I as soon as she had internet available that I would have her on because I wanted her to tell her story. And so, Patricia, welcome, welcome. How are you?
Thank you. I'm really good. Actually, it's funny because I was watching your title and it says "Conquering Your Fears." Well, it's conquering your fears on steroids, and it's been hard. It's been easy. It's been smooth, but fear and ego. Oh my God, it can get so in the way, and we are our own worst enemies.
The mind is yes, absolutely.
It's actually, let me say hi to Dennis, Lindsay there in the chat, and Mel,
Yes,
good to see you, and Kathy, good to see you there, and Nancy, Lucky, good to see you, and whoever else comes in. Margaret, sorry I missed
Margaret. Yes.
you. Good to see you too. Yeah, it's been oh man, it's been a roller coaster ever since I started my YouTube in 2020, right? But boy, have I learned a lot. It's I mean, I don't even know where to start.
I want you to start with who you were, who you had become, and what
Right.
happened, what prompted all of this to happen. But first, I think people need to know what happened in your world that you just started closing in and became this person, that wouldn't go outside and wouldn't venture and wouldn't.
Yeah, so it's all started like when I was small with extreme anxiety as a child. And so I'm just going to go very quickly because I'm not going to go through my whole life, obviously, but just the main points. And so when I was 25, I started getting panic attacks, like badly, like 5 a day randomly. I had no clue what was going on. And that makes that you get so afraid of these panic attacks that you start finding places that you want to be safe, and the only place that you're actually not safe because it's within, right, where you have to find your safety. But I didn't know that for years and years. So I was 25 when that started, and so it almost immediately it turned to agoraphobia, which means you're not going out in the street anymore. You stay closed in your own world, where you feel safe, which is in this case was my home. And I've done that for 27 years. I'm now 53. And so in those years, I wasn't sitting still. I learned so much. I rather loved not being in the world around people because it's I only had to do me and that was it. And so I started learning to paint. I started doing all these things. And I had my cats, right? And my cats were my everything. And I was happy with that. In the meantime, I did have an addiction, heavily on Xanax. And I would like, they wanted to put me on Ritalin because I had the stamp ADHD. And so when she meant 23, I
23.
was like,
You
oh,
look, yeah, you look
okay.
23.
So, and so then they wanted to put me on Ritalin. So what I was taking was uppers and downers, uppers and downers, uppers and downers. And so in 2012, I was like, well, I'm not in the world, which is fine because I still have an income, from the government, like benefits. And I have a roof over my head. I don't have a lot of money, but I'm quite happy this way. All I need to do is get rid of that addiction. And so I went to rehab in 2012. Little did I know there were 70 other people. I didn't think of that one moment. And when I went into rehab, I haven't had seen people for 8 months. like not a soul. And I had to go into the airplane to Scotland, and I was completely out of my mind on Xanax to get there. And then when I arrived, I was like, oh my God, there's people here. Why didn't I think of that? Right. And so that's where I went through a journey. Instead of getting rid of all medication and drugs and all that stuff, I had to learn how to cope with people. And I did that. And it was only after I got out of rehab, after 6 months, a year later, that I found sort of a balance, and I quit it all at once, the medication and everything. And that's when I decided in 2014, I moved house. And that's when I decided to go 100% holistic. And from there, my healing journey started. And I was 43 years old. And it started from there, building up. In the meantime, my cats were with me already 5 years. And so then eventually I started 2020, my YouTube channel. And that was my first time to get back into the world around people. And it was a safe way to do it. Little did I know I would get these followers, right? It was just as a challenge to myself. But because I was in those movements and truth movements and all that, you do get a network, although you don't realize it, but you do. And so, but I never deemed myself important or whatever. But yet I got all these followers, and I was like, oh my God, now I need to focus on that, right? Which I did for the next 2 years. And so then last year, after 15 years, in 1 week time, both my cats died. And that's when my world crumbled apart in a way. In another way, I instantly was so far now in my development that I thought, it's not a coincidence that they both died in the same week.
Yep.
And I remember that, Pebbles was so first it was Uki on the 25th of May, and then the 1st of June it was Pebbles, and I knew she was sick. I didn't see it this whole time, and I was like, where did that come from? And I was with her 2 hours before she died, and I said, oh my God, do you really need to go too? And I heard this voice in my head, yes, mommy, because it's time that you do it by yourself. And it was so clear. It was so insane. And although I knew what was happening right then, 2 hours later, she was dead in my arms.
Wow.
And my world crumbled. But at the same time, I found this whole freaking group of women, of which many of you are here, and including Dennis came later. But yeah, Sarah, good to see you. You were there. Everybody was there. And I created this group of women a bit before that. And that's where it was the first time in 53 years that I broke down completely, crying, because I never cried. It was always about being strong. Crying is weakness, those belief systems. And I was with you girls in a voice chat. And then all of a sudden, it was a voice chat of 15 hours long, people coming and going. And all of a sudden, I just broke down for the first time in my life. And I felt safe. And I was like, oh my God, can I just do this without feeling weak? And everybody was so supportive. And then the next day, I remember going live, and I broke down live on my YouTube. Well, that was my worst nightmare ever. But that broke open myself, my spirit, right? And so I started going through the grieving process of the cats so consciously. I remember every single second of last year, every second, the breakdowns, the everything. And so there was this moment, it was about 1.5 months after my cats died. And all of a sudden I thought, I can't do this. I can't do this. And I was like, I can't, I need my cats back. I need my old life back. I was so scared. And so I fell in this deep depression that night, just that night. I know you can't call it depression, because depression is a long stint of feeling down, but
Right.
it wasn't it. I just fell down, and I was so scared. And I started crying and screaming in my house. And I said, I can do this. Please come back to me. And I looked at their pictures on the wall. And right at that moment, I see this flickering of the light. And what's going on with the light? And and looked again. It's not the lights. It was their pictures both. It was actually these two pictures here from them, and they were hanging on the wall and they were moving. And I
Wow.
wiped my eyes and I'm like, am I seeing this well? And I walked to the wall and right in front of my nose. And that's when I broke down. I'm like, oh my God, you guys are here. You guys are here. And I started crying and I said, oh my God, thank God you are here. And although you're not here physically, you're here in spirit, right? And I lost them that in that 1.5 months from the moment that they died, right? And so then I just grabbed onto that. And then I decided, okay, I'm going to do this. I'm going to do this. I'm going to work through this grief and I'm going to find my way into the human world now because it's time. And I was so scared out of my mind. And well, you know that you were there. Sarah was there. Mel was there. You all were there with me. And till the very day that I thought, you know what? I cannot do it here in Amsterdam. I need to get out of the place where I did my whole healing for all these years. I need to get away from here. I can't stand it anymore. I can't stand the pressure here in Europe anymore. I just need to get out. And so I thought, well, I want to go to Bali. This was in April. But I knew I couldn't go without, the thingy. And so then I thought, let me find a place where it's similar. And so I find on the map, I find Mexico, first of all. And then I'm like, okay, then where in Mexico? And I find this place on the map. And I'm like, wow, the climate is the same. It's actually in the same, what they call it, the longitude as Hawaii, Lumeria, Bali, all the same. And I was like, well, that's perfect, right? Same temperature, same climate, same spiritual vibes. And I thought, okay, fine. And it was just a thought. And the same week, I meet Jay Gilliland, who is the brother of James. Little did I know that he had a brother, but I accidentally came to talk to him. And I'm thinking of going to Mexico. We were just talking casually. And he said, oh, I've been living here for 20 years. And I'm like, where? Right in this spot. And I'm like, you can't make this up. And then I was like, all right, well, how is it? Tourist visa, you need to have financial background and all that. And I didn't have all that. And I'm like, well, forget about it. I can't get there because I don't meet these requirements. And he goes, well, I know a lawyer, a migration lawyer that can help you. And I'm like, yeah, well, would we know that I don't already have researched? And he said, well, just contact him. And within no time, I got my visa. I got my work permit and everything just went. And it was when I was packing my boxes in my house that I thought, I went in a complete panic, right? I remember talking to you about it because I was crying and I was like, oh my God, I can't do this. I can't do this. I can't do this. What am I doing? I've been in my house for 20 years straight. I haven't been around in the world. I have done things together with others, but I haven't done anything by myself. And I have my cats this whole time. What am I going to do? But I'm already packing. My house was already half empty. And I went through every box very meticulously because everything had a memory. And with every single thing, I cried and broke down. It was like this big, big purge, right?
Yes.
And my ego wanted to boycott and sabotage everything the whole way through. But for the first time in my life, my higher self couldn't give a flying F about my ego and just kept going on. Everything just aligned, right? And I was like, I can't find any excuse not to go. And I want to find an excuse so badly because I can't do this. My ego was so in the way. But there were all you guys helping me constantly through it.
Yeah, and I mean, even financially, it was like, I don't know how I'm going to do this. And out of the blue, you get, and I don't even know the details. All I know is out of the blue, you had money. And I was like, oh my God, everything's falling in place for this to happen. This is so magical.
Yes. So my ticket, the tickets were tripled in price. We had all
Uh-huh.
these airport issues. I couldn't take my luggage because if I would, there was a big chance I would lose it because all the airports were full of luggage that were not loaded into the airplanes because crew and no, and not enough personnel because COVID. And I was like, oh my God, now what? I need to send it. Well, that cost about 700 euros in US dollars, 700. And
Wow.
because I had just one suitcase that was about $400. But then I couldn't get everything in my suitcase because I planned on moving, right? And I'm like, I need another box, 15 kilos. So I just had donations, people helping me, and I just got it all together. And I did a raffle, remember? I did a raffle and then I got everything together. But then I was like, I would actually be received by Jay, but then his mom died and he had to go to the US. So now, me in a panic again, because now I'm like, oh my God, I'm going to this country. I've never been in that continent in my life and I don't know a soul. And so he goes, well, because you're coming a month later, I have this girl that actually is renting your room right now that I reserved for you. And she's also from Amsterdam. And she happened to have the same birthday as me.
That's crazy.
I'm like, you can't make that up.
Uh-uh.
So she actually helped me land there. But before that, she told me, listen, why don't you, because it was much cheaper to fly to Cancun. It would save me $1,000, which for me was a lot of money, right? And I said, well, and then I thought of Sarah, who is in the chat, and she goes, well, you can stay with me for some days, right? And I'm like, okay, then I'm gonna land at your place. Then I get Sissy because obviously we're friends, and she told me about her big journey that she did the same, right? With the anxieties, conquering our fears, and she was already there for some months. I think it was almost a year, and getting her house ready and all that. So I landed there, and the most emotional thing that happened during that time was I was so scared of flying. And thank God I had special assistance because I also discovered right before my cat's passed that I have autism. And so it turned out all the labels that they put on me over all those years, they were not those labels. It was because I'm in a different function in a different way. So that was the reason for the panic attacks. It was the reason for me being hyper because it's a way of coping, but you do not treat it the same way as you would every individual label. ADHD, I guess I had a label borderline, agoraphobic, anxiety disorder. Well, name them and I had them, right? But they all fell under autism in as a whole. But because it was not treated ever, it only became worse and worse and worse because all the treatments I had actually amplified everything instead of
Wow.
making it better. So I discovered that when I started reading about everything autism, I'm like, oh my God. So all these therapies did indeed what they predicted. It would make everything worse because it's approached from the wrong perspective. It's
Okay.
approached from a mental illness, but it's not that. If your brain functions completely different, you cannot heal when it comes from a different angle, if that makes sense.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
And so now I started getting to know about this too. And so where was I going with this? Oh, right, special assistant in the airport. And it took 5 hours in a queue to get to your airplane. And about 40% of the people would never manage to get to their plane. And I was terrified. And it was the day before my birthday. The day before my birthday, the next day I was leaving. But my neighbor, and I was supposed to go by myself to the airport, and I was so terrified. And so my neighbor comes for my birthday, and she said, "Why don't I take you to the airport tomorrow morning?" And I'm like, "Really?" And she goes like, "Yeah." And she stayed with me the whole time until I got assistance. And they guided me. Within 5 minutes, I was at my airplane. I didn't have to take the whole
Wow.
hour. Even that was flawless. But I told the girls in the group that we are in Telegram, and I told them, I'm so terrified. my plane's leaving at that time, and please be with me, right? And this and that. But yeah, in that moment, I was in so much stress. I didn't, all I was like survival mode. And I went in the airplane and I decided to start writing my life in a book when I entered the airplane, and I did. I sat in the airplane and I was trembling, and I opened my laptop and I was like, I'm going to start and write my book right now. And I started writing with, I'm here on an airplane on my way to Mexico. Who would have thought a year ago that I would be doing this, right? And I started writing. And so then I passed over Florida at a certain point, and I looked down and I thought of you and I thought of everybody else. And I'm like, this is the closest I ever gotten to America for now, right? And I was looking at all of Florida. We went straight over Miami and everything, and I actually filmed it. Little did I know that all the girls in the chat group were following me along on the flight radar.
Yeah.
And right at that moment, they said, look, she's above Florida. And that was right the moment. But the thing is, when I arrived, obviously I was with Sarah. It was amazing. I got to see her in person. She helped me a lot grounding there and landing there, literally. And so it was only 3 weeks later, I saw all the messages from the girls following me along every single hour in the airplane. And I started crying. And I was like, oh my God, these women, they are like, they've been here with me the whole road. And yeah, I'm so grateful for that, right? And so then I landed, and I remember Sarah putting this camera in my face. She's here, she's here. And I hadn't slept for 36 hours. And I was so exhausted, but I couldn't care less. I was like, I'm kind of glad because you're like a bit out of your mind.
Right. Yeah.
So you don't have space to get into anxiety either. It's so much coming at you. Everything is new. And so I stayed with her for 3 days, and it was really wonderful. And I helped her with a few things, and she actually gave me the most amazing tostados, which I now make exactly the same. And but then I left 3 days later for Puerto Vallarta, where I had to go another 2 hours with a driver to the house. And the girl that was in the house, Alea, she was supposed to pick me up on the airport, but she wasn't. She was sick that day. So me panic again, right? But then, what do you know? By this time, I should know that the universe always aligns everything, right? And so the driver that I had so much conversation with him that I forgot I was in a car, because any kind of travel is scary to me, right? Because being stuck in your house for 20 years, it was go to the groceries around the corner and go back. And that was it. And if I did something or I went somewhere, which in 2016, I went to Bali for healings and stuff, I was not by myself. My, at the time, boyfriend was with me. But now I was all by myself. And so this was new in the whole 27 years of agoraphobia. And so I mean, I can't even fathom it still now today. And so then I arrived in a place where I had no internet. Well, what do you know? It looked like a paradise, an absolute paradise.
Right on the water. It was incredible.
It was amazing. I still have to make a video about it, but for the audience. But that will be on my channel soon. I will actually show that. And so I did write my blog there. I started writing a blog. And I put it on my website, and stuff just flowed out of me. It was just because I had no internet. So what do, right? You write. And so at the same time, I don't know if you want to interject, because, I don't even give you the space to interject. It's just so tricky.
Well, yeah, no, the thought is just like, well, while you're going through this experience, did you ever say oh my God, I can't believe that I did it. Like I actually did it.
No, it was up till the very end still was actually, I forgot this little piece. It was just one day before I left for Mexico that I accepted that I was going. this whole time. I couldn't accept it, although everything just went right smoothly. And I'm like, of course the universe let it run smoothly, because if it would take any effort, I wouldn't have gone anyway. But now everything just fell in place. There was no way I could say no, because I wasn't given that chance. My ego did not get the space to say, hell no, I'm not going. I can't do this because money, because this, because that. Any excuse would do at that time, right?
Yes.
But there were these moments where, for example, I got out of the airplane and I'm like, okay, I did it. Next step, right? And then I would do that and I'm like, okay, I did that. Next step, right? It's been like that ever since April. It's been like, okay, done that. Next step, right? And so then I've met some serious challenges in that house over there, because not having internet for a long period of time makes you realize things that you can't do when you're distracted by internet. It would take me like an hour to just load a page. So never mind, just give it up, right? And so then all of a sudden I started thinking about the last 2 years when I started my channel. And I was like, well, what actually happened? What actually happened? My life changed completely the moment I started the YouTube. I didn't realize it until that moment. And then I thought, is that why I stopped exercising? Is that why I stopped cleaning my house? Is that why I stopped making my bed? Is that when I stopped actually paying attention to my cats, which I would do every day for 15 years until I started my YouTube? Because now I got back in the world and my focus was shifted to a point that I haven't been for so many years, that it needed all my, needed is not the right word, but it got all my attention, that I literally did not think of what I was doing before that, which was being fairly happy, paint, do my own, do whatever I need to do, give attention 24/7 to my cats and they to me. And that was my life until I decided to challenge myself. Little did I know there were so many factors coming with it. And I only realized it when I arrived here without the internet. And I thought, hang on, when was it when I stopped actually cleaning my house properly like I did every week? And I thought that was when I started my YouTube channel. So then when did I stop exercising regularly? When I started my YouTube channel and when it started growing. So then when did I stop being meditating? When I started my YouTube channel. Why didn't I see that my cat was sick on time? I would have spotted this the day he would get sick. I didn't. He was already deteriorating when I spotted it. And so this is when I broke down over there, because now I realized, what if I could have saved them? What if I could have seen? And so guilt started coming, right?
Wow.
And so now I had to go through that whole shadow side of everything I didn't realize, because I was 24/7 online. And all of a sudden I realized, is that why I have pains in my body now? Because I didn't exercise anymore? Is that why I started gaining weight little by little again? Is that why this and that and that? Yes, that was the reason, because I wasn't paying attention anymore. So now I had a whole new lesson. And so first I had to go through that guilt feeling, because I cried every day and saying sorry to my cats in the spirit world. Sorry for not having saved you, because now I started blaming myself for their death, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so I had to go through that. I did that. And then I just kept my perspective and saying, okay, don't be that hard on yourself. It was impossible to focus on everything at once. And you know what? They've been through out with me the whole time. And I love them to pieces. And then, and this is the beauty, right? Because I could have kept in that sulking, guilt feeling moment.
Yep.
But here's the thing, where I lived, because I have a new house now, another house. Where I lived at the time, the electricity would go off, and it could be easily off for 12 hours. If we had a storm, it's a raining season when I arrived. No airco, be bitten by bugs. I looked like a freaking meth addict. All the wounds I had, it was insane. But there's one thing I'm really scared of, and that's a violent storm. but it's
Oh,
raining seasons and we had them constantly.
yeah.
And so I had those two pictures again, these two pictures
Uh-huh.
next to my bed. And next to my bed was a lamp. And the first week, I was so scared. And then the second week, it happened. All electricity went out. And instantly, I felt panic coming up because unsafety, all those feelings
Right.
from the past, right? And so I went to my room and I put all the candles because I was prepared that in case it would happen, they already want me. It can happen. And I'm like, I'm not even going to sit and wait to happen till the light goes off. I just need to be sure that I have everything charged. I have my USB. I have my distractions so I won't be in my fear. I don't have my cats with me anymore. And so all I have is candles and my music. And music keeps me calm again. And so right then, and I'm trembling, right? Because everything is dark. But I do have housemates, but they're with their own stuff and it's pitch black. And I
Oh,
mean pitch black. And right at that moment, the light next to my bed goes on. And I called Jerry and Alea were living with me in the house. And I said, come here, come here. And they look and they both look at that light and they're like, how is that possible? And I'm like, my cats. And right then and there, I knew they were there with me. And this happened in 2012 in rehab, the same thing. I was in Scotland in the middle of nowhere in a castle. We had a storm. I had the pictures next to my bed. The girls didn't want me to share their room with them. And so I was ostracized to the detox room forever, where everybody comes into the clinic. And so every time there were new people in, and that night we had a storm. And right then and there, all the light went off except that one light next to my bed, right above the pictures of the cats. Right. And everybody, the girls that hated me so much over there, they were like, how does she still have a light? And I'm like, hey, magic. Right. And so now 5 times this happened in that house. So
wow.
when I was grieving that moment that I had guilt and I like, oh, I'm so sorry. I didn't see that you were sick and all that. And then I'm like, but you're still here. You're still here protecting me. And you're still here with me. And so then one night, and this was about 3 weeks before I left that house, I was sitting on the bed, and for once and again, storm. By now, I was on the bed sitting, and all the lights went off, and that light went on again. Every single time, no failure. Every single time that light went on. And so I sit on the bed,
That's
and I'm
crazy.
like, oh my God, I'm over my fear of storms. And I'm also over my fear of darkness. Okay, I've got easy talking, but really, if the light would fall out now next to me, I wouldn't care. And right as I think that, and the light goes out. And I'm
Oh
looking
my
at that right
God.
brief moment I had, and I was like, ah, you're tricking me, you bastards, you're tricking me. And I'm like, because I thought that, and now you're showing me it's also true, and I need to know that it's true. And so the whole freaking way, everything that happened, just it's I you cannot explain this stuff. And so,
Wow.
and that's when I realized, you guys forgiven me, you are still with me, and you know that it was not intentional, but I didn't have the space, and I need to forgive myself for it, right?
Yeah.
Which I did. And then I thought, okay, so whatever I haven't done in these past 2 years, I can do it again. And so I started making my bed again. I started cleaning the whole house every week over there, right? I did my things and be in focus. And in fact, before I started my YouTube, cleaning was my meditation, right? Because I would just, same as painting, you don't have to sit down to meditate. You don't have to sit still to meditate.
Right.
And so I started cleaning again. And then I started, doing things, being conscious again, and start going through everything that I found that I have not done over the past 2 years, and just think about it. What am I? what am I missing? What am I not doing still? And where is that dark shadow still? And in all this time, and then I was confronted with a new fear. So two of my housemates left the house, and I was left with a Jay came back. And I was very uncomfortable in the house by now, because now I started to get feeling impatient about not having internet, and I bumped into other things that I felt that now that threshold was arrived where I needed to get out in the world, because that was the whole reason why I came here to begin with.
Yeah.
And I couldn't stand it anymore, because I was depending on Jay for a car to get groceries. Because remember, I was in the middle of the jungle. I couldn't go anywhere. I was
Wow.
depending on somebody else for groceries, for food, for internet, for anything, right? And I couldn't do that. So now I started to become irritated, right? And so I found my own shadow there again, being mirrored back constantly, right? And then panic attacks started coming again, big time.
Wow.
And I was like, what is happening? I cannot do this. I cannot do this. Agoraphobia kicking in again, full blown, right? And this happened a week before I actually moved. And so then I found this place, a studio, and it was a brand new studio, and they were still building it, and it was not ready, so I couldn't move. But I got so anxious that panic attacks started. And I was like, why is this happening now? Right? I'm working through everything, right? Why now? And then I thought, no matter how much fear I have right now, there is a reason for this, because I cannot ignore anymore that the universe is always bringing me everything that I need to learn, right? And by now, fairly quickly, I was like, what is the lesson here? And I was like, maybe it is that for once and for all, I get rid of the fear of panic attacks, the fear of anxiety, the fear of getting out into the world. Maybe that's why I have this. And so, but either way, I wanted to make it easy on myself. And I met somebody, a friend, that said, why, I have an extra room. Why don't you come to me and stay here till your house is ready there, the studio? And this was in the middle of the village, like smack in the middle. And mind you, it's full of expats here. It's like the majority is Canadian, and then Americans, and then Europeans. And you speak English all day long. I live next to a Canadian bar right now,
Wow.
where there is Halloween tonight. So, but anyway, and so, but also the Mexicans, they know this, right? So there's the locals, expats, and locals Mexicans. So anyway, I get to his room, and I'm like, what's the studio next to you? And he has, yeah, it's empty. Somebody's supposed to come in there. And I'm like, take me to the lead lady. And by now, my Spanish started to become still crooked, but and I said, is that still for rent? And she goes, yes. And I immediately paid the deposit, because it was exactly the same price as the studio that was half the size, and it has a swimming pool. And I paid the same price as I would for that studio. And the next day, right, I moved everything in.
Wow.
Right. And this is now 2.5 weeks ago.
Yeah.
And so then I needed to get out. But now panic attacks are still there, because it's fresh in my memory what a panic attack is like again. And so what do you
And
know?
what's triggering the panic attack?
The anxiety, the fear of the panic attack.
Oh, the fear of getting
Yeah.
one.
And that's
Oh,
a tricky
shit.
one. Yes. That's a catch-22, isn't it? And
Yeah.
so
Yeah.
that's exactly what a problem has been for so long, right? It's like,
Wow.
okay, I have fear of the panic attack.
Oh,
And because
shit.
you have the fear, you get the panic attack. And so you go on and on and on. How
It's
do
a
you get
vicious
out of that?
circle.
It's a circle. It's a vicious circle. So how do you get out of that, right?
Yes.
And so there's this neighbor I have. He's Canadian, and he's lovely. And he came out of his marriage after 20 years. We're friends. He's like a brother to me right now, right? And we're living literally next door. He was married to a woman that had bipolar for years, for 20 years. They were together, and they got separated last year. So he knows about this. And so now he's actually guiding me. He said, I'm not going to hold your hand, because I can't be here and babysit you, but I can help you get through it. And so the first time we were supposed to go to the beach, and I live now not at the beach like I used to. Now I live at the end of the village. It's 15 minutes to the beach. And so you get this threshold. It's like, okay, I can go to here and then I want to go back home like as quick as I can. I don't,
Really?
yeah, because I'm scared that I have a panic attack and the only place that I feel safe is at home, right?
Oh, okay.
And and so we were walking and we're almost at the beach. And I was like, I can do this, I can do this. And I was about to go in a panic attack. And he said, don't worry, we turn around, we go back home. And so then guilt feelings start coming, right? Yeah, but you wanted to go to the beach. And now you're now actually babysitting. No, I'm not. I'm just helping you getting through this. And so I started trusting him because he gave me that trust. And so yesterday he said, let's do it again. He said, we're going to the beach. It doesn't matter at what point. If you want to go back, we go back. And we were halfway, and I said, I need a breather. I can't do this. I can't do this. He said, just wait and just think about it. Do you want to go back? And I'm like, no, I don't want to fail. Well, he said, it's not failure. It's just something you're not used to. And I'm like, yeah, okay, breathe, be in the now, just ground, ground. And we went a bit further. And eventually we got to the beach. And then I said, don't go in the water because then you need to undress and then we can go back quick enough, right? So we're sitting on the beach and he said, we're going to stay here. As soon as you want to go, we go. And I said, no, just give me time, right? And I started feeling the ground and I started seeing the ocean. And I looked and he started actually distracting me with all the beauty I saw around me. And I was like, okay, I'm grounding. Don't think, don't use that freaking brain.
Yeah.
Feel, be in the now.
Mm-hmm.
And we went into the water after half an hour. I literally said to him, because I went back and forth and he just had the patience. He sat there with me and I went back and forth and said, let me just dip my feet in the water and see if I can do this. And I dipped my feet in the water and all of a sudden I start crying. And I said, and I looked up and it was like looking at my cats. And I said, I know you guys are here and I know you want to be proud of me. And you said, I'm going to do this for me and I can't do it alone now. And I was half dressed by now, right? In half an hour time, or it was actually an hour time building up slowly to this point. And I broke down and I started sobbing. And I turned around and I got my clothes off and I said, his name is Gordon. I said, Gordon, come on, fuck it. I don't do this anymore. I'm going to win this game. I'm not going to be powerless anymore. And I got so angry. And we went swimming.
Wow.
And I started laughing and crying at the same time because I was like, oh my God, I'm doing this, right? And then sometimes I would go back to my thoughts again. And I said, don't. And so I kept talking about anxiety with him. And he said, stop talking about anxiety, just enjoy the moment. And I'm like, yeah, okay, yeah, thank you, right? And so, doing that. And so that was yesterday. And after that, I had a few other breakdowns. And a friend came by, but it's two steps forward, one step back. And but then it's so funny that today we have this talk because yesterday and today everything is happening and coming together. It's insane. And so what happens is that this morning I woke up and I was like, oh, no, don't want to confront the world, right? I wake up late still. I go to bed late, just like I did in Holland. And I'm like, don't do this, having to call myself back the whole time, right? And not punish myself, but be real with myself.
Mm-hmm,
You
mm-hmm.
have to be real with yourself. You
Yeah.
have to constantly be honest with yourself, no matter how scary. And there was this one day that I was sobbing in my house and my neighbor comes in and he's like, what's going on? And I'm saying, well, I'm doing this, this, and this. And I only do it because I have fear and I'm let myself be ruled by fear. He said, well, at least you know what's going on. I said, well, that's the point because that's what makes me cry because now how am I going to solve it? Right. But the solving, and it's so funny. I got this card, right? You don't have to see the whole staircase to take the first step. And so a few weeks back, I started making clothes because when I'm busy, I don't think. And it's like meditation. And I started making this dress and I made it by hand out of a sheet because there's no shops here. It's a village. It's
Right.
one street, right?
Yeah.
There's nothing. You can order online, but I still had to go to the village in order to get it because I didn't even have an address because they don't deliver in the middle of the jungle. And
Right.
so I'm like, okay, I'm going to use this sheet and I'm going to make that dress because I love that dress. And I made it by hand. It took me 2 days. And then everybody was like, I love that dress. And I was like, really? And so I thought, let me order some fabric, right? Although I didn't have that much money anymore, but I was like, the hell with it. I'm going to take that risk. I ordered fabric, started making the dress, and started wearing it. I swear within 2 days, 15 people wanted to buy this dress. And I was like, seriously? And I'm like, okay, I bought a sewing machine. I bought my fabrics. And now I started a whole clothing line. I mean, really.
It's just magic. It's just magic. And what's coming to me too is that if it wasn't for fear, you wouldn't be here.
Right. Right.
Like fear has actually created or given you this journey, and fear is actually created this beautiful, story. If it wasn't for fear, it wouldn't be here. It wouldn't, so it's almost like I feel like we need to see it really for what it is, which is just something that has helped you in your journey.
Oh, yeah.
In a way, in a weird way,
In a really weird way, because even the 20 years in the house, I couldn't have coped if I wouldn't have done that because I didn't know I had autism until I was 52. And then I read everything and I'm like, that everything makes sense now. Because that was the day that I was at the vet with the cat, the day Uki died, the first cat. That's when I was for the first time out again. I had to go to the vet. My neighbor was with me. I told her about the autism and she goes, so what are you feeling then when you're out? And I thought, I haven't been out for so long, I don't even know. But she had to go to the toilet for a moment. We were sitting in a busy street and I did have a tranquilizer because I was scared to death. And we were sitting on the terrace outside. And then I thought, yeah, what am I actually feeling and thinking when I'm out? And I started feeling in my body, and all of a sudden it happened. The whole world came at me. Every sound, every movement, everything just like a waterfall came onto me. And that's when I realized, oh my God, there's a panic attack building. No wonder I never knew these panic attacks didn't come out of the blue. They just were building the whole time, and then they would just come because I was not aware what was happening, what I was feeling, and what was actually happening. And what was happening was all the impulses from outside and around me,
yes,
movement,
overload.
sound. And at that moment, the panic started building up. And for the first time in 27 years, I was like, okay, breathe, breathe. What's going on is that I see a lot of people, I see a lot of movement, I hear a lot of sounds, but I can push them away from my body. And I did it right then and there. And that's when I knew this is where the panic attacks came from all along.
Wow.
I wouldn't have known that in the whole 20 years. It would have been torture because I had in 1999, I was in a psychiatric clinic for this. And what they did with me was exposure therapy. You couldn't give me something worse. It amplified the agoraphobia rather than it made better. I'm actually traumatized from that. I was constantly exposed to all the things that I was not aware of that I couldn't cope with. And
wow.
so everything fell into place that week that my cats died. And it was 3 hours later that the first cat died. And so obviously I didn't have time to think about that stuff that I just figured out. But now This happens. And then a week later, Pebbles dies. And then I hear that voice of her. She put her paw in my face 2 hours before she died. And I heard this voice. Now you're ready to do it alone. And
Wow.
I never thought about it until right now, at this very moment, that I never related it to. That's why I was ready, because I figured out what was causing the panic attacks. And I only think about that right now at this very moment. This is why I was ready to do it by myself. And yes, thank you, Leyland. Leyland has been such a damn good support, like you, by the way, Elisa, because there's been moments that you just come up with this, well, what if you just think like this? And I'm like, oh, wow, I didn't think of that, right? And Leyland has been one of those as well. And one day, I hope I can tell this story. I'm not going to go in details, but yeah, my grandmother is always with me by my side. So one day she contacts me and she goes, I don't know, but there's a woman behind you in your stream. And she tells me what she looks like. And I'm like, that's my grandmother. And I'm like, she's still here? I left her behind when I moved house because I thought now I can do it by myself. And she left. She said, no, she's still here. I actually talked with her for 9 hours. She's just snapping at me constantly. And she told me everything I was about to do. And Leyland, she was so right. You told it. Everything that my grandmother told you, it has come true. Every single one of the things that she said. And this was in April, I believe, when I just had a thought. We had a long conversation about it. And she said, about the colors I would see and everything. And I would be vibrant and I would do things that, bring people together and all that. And I was like, hang on, everything that is happening. And so one part of that, what actually is coming true, was today, right today, when I had finally a phone call with a friend after a long time because I wasn't online. And she goes, listen, we need to bring every platform and everything worldwide together right now. From every country has their own platforms, speakers, um, social medias, big groups of people and speakers with big followers. Every country has them, and now we need to unite them. And she said, well, and because of the farmer thing that's going on in Holland, things started already uniting a bit, because everybody was like, we stand with the farmers, we stand with the farmers. It's not just about the farmers, it's about us all, right? And she goes, you're the perfect person to actually bring everybody together, because you've always done it with your channel. It's called the Keystone Channel for a reason. I'm like, that's a brilliant idea. And I looked at all the partnering she has, and I'm like, holy moly, those are big people. And I'm like, yeah, I can do that. Let's do it. And so I've been on the phone all day right before we got into the stream. And Leyland told my grandmom, she said, you're going to be uniting people. You're going to be in communication with people. You're going to have people around you and bring them together, because that's who you are. And it's going to be very colorful. And yeah, I'm not going to go into many details and personal things, but they're all coming through. Every single one of them. You can't make this up.
It's magic. This is what I call the magic of the universe, when everything is put in place for you to do what you came here to do.
Yeah,
it's just so beautiful.
it is. And let me tell anybody that is struggling with fear, and the terrifying fear that I had was like on steroids. And
yes,
it still is.
And I want you to tell people, what stories was fear telling you to stop you from doing what you needed to do? Because I want people to be aware of that. What's happening to many people. They're listening to these fears.
Yes. And that's it. Because then today I had all these conversations. I'm like, holy moly, yesterday I was still feeling this small and still doing little step. And then today, all of a sudden, something clicked. And I was like, hang on, I forgot standing in my power. I forgot that I have power. And I know that sounds really cliche, but you literally need to feel it within and know that it's there, because I've experienced it throughout my life in periods, but you forget it all along. When you are taken by fear, you feel small and you want help from others and from the outside
Mm-hmm.
world, instead of actually turn it around, say, hang on, I'm going to be angry with fear. I don't need fear. I'm going to stand in my power and I'm going to take my power back. That doesn't mean that fear is gone and out of the window. No, it's not. But it's just a different perspective that you have to keep in mind. And all of a sudden, you start feeling this shift within you that makes you feel like, hang on, I'm not weak and powerless just because I feel fear, because the feeling of fear makes you feel powerless and weak in the first
Mm-hmm.
place. And I thought, what if I actually start feeling powerful and stand in my power? And all of a sudden I felt, hang on, fear is moving away now. And I was like, ooh, that was subtle, but I did feel it. And it was an hour before we went on the stream here. I actually thought about that and I was like, how did I forget that? Because we constantly have to do it over and over. It's repetition.
Mm-hmm.
Just like when you go to the gym, repetition builds the body. And also repetition builds your strength and gets your power back. And no matter how much fearful, and sometimes there were moments that, not sometimes, actually a lot of times, there were moments I'm like, I can do this. I mean, you've heard me say it many times on the phone. I can do this. I can do this. I just want to give up. I want to get my cats back. I did that yesterday even. And it's okay now. I'm not going to punish myself anymore for it. You know what? Because those moments will be, because that's what my aim is, right? Be fewer in between. And trying to get more of that power back and standing in that power. And it's very easy to say it, but when you live through it and then all of a sudden something switches in your mind, a perspective, which you can only do with the help of other people, which is how I got here in the first place. I wouldn't have gotten here without you all, right? I wouldn't have gotten here without all the people that I encountered that I actually avoided for 20 years long. So we tend to, as loners, I'm one of those lone wolves. We tend to isolate ourselves and go within and go away. But what are we really doing? Are we hiding? Are we afraid to admit what's going on? I tell the whole world what's going on with me, not so they have pity with me, so that they understand what's going on. Because,
Mm-hmm.
don't judge the book by its cover. How many times I've heard here already, you're so pretty and this and that. And I'm like, you have no idea, right? Prettiness is the last thing I'm thinking of, because right now I'm just in survival mode, right? So, and it's those small things that you have to, yeah, you cannot give up, although there are moments that you are giving up, because we do need to complain, we do need sometimes to just lament, but the honesty, indeed, honesty helps. It helps others, but it helps yourself. Don't shy away from telling what your weakness is. And now, as an interesting thing, I have a friend that was actually using me for certain things. And I'm like, don't mistake my weakness of anxiety and fear for being a doormat, because I'm not. Also, I haven't been around people, so I have nothing to lose. I will only have people around me that also give me back as I give to them, and that point out my faults, and I can point out theirs, and without hurting, obviously. But if you are not there for me, while you actually had the time to be there for me, but you chose to be selfish, whatever, then what's my point of being in having you in my life, right?
Mm-hmm.
I'm
Mm-hmm.
talking about you, but somebody in general.
Right.
And so I was like, yeah, not gonna do that. I'm just starting my life in the world. Let's start immediately by selecting the right people within your world, and make sure that they accept who I am and that I accept who they are. And that if any of you or me make mistakes, that we can be honest to each other about it without
Mm-hmm.
feeling offended. Mel knows all about it. We had screaming matches and she's still a friend, right? We're not always agreeing. It's fine. It's okay. Just don't take everything so personal as an attack, but rather, because I firmly believe that when people love you, around you, friends, family, whoever, they never criticize you because they don't like you. They criticize you because they love you and they don't want you to make mistakes. Doesn't mean that they don't know or know their own mistakes. That's totally separate from it. But when people do criticize me about something, I do take that with me and say, ah, yeah, indeed, I am doing this. I am doing that. I need to look at myself. That's the only way how you help yourself is by being honest to yourself,
Yeah,
right?
absolutely. And that's huge, Patricia. That's huge because sometimes, I can try to explain something to people over and over and over, but they don't take it. They don't take it. They
Right.
don't do anything with it. It doesn't go anywhere. And so that's why I love who you are, and because you are honest and you take the feedback and you really like make it click in your head. And let me tell you, I don't have a lot of people that do that, and
Well,
that's
let's
why they
say,
don't change. That's why their lives are the same, and that's why nothing happens. And let me tell you, that's why I don't have a whole lot of girlfriends. Why? They don't like honesty. When you're honest,
oh yeah,
they
yeah.
don't like you. They don't
No,
like
they don't.
you.
They don't. And I've noticed that here too. And my neighbor, I'm very honest with him, but he's still with me, which is a novelty for me, except outside from obviously you and Mel and Leyland as well. And there is people that just you need people to tell you the truth. And it doesn't mean that those people are perfect. Don't immediately assume, oh, because you think you're perfect. You know what?
No,
You teach what you actually lack.
exactly.
That's that you teach it because you lack it, and that's why you need to teach it, because in a sense, are we teaching to tell ourselves, right? But
Exactly.
but many people forget to actually take that in consideration as well. So if I give somebody an advice, that's for me also the cue to say, okay, am I taking that advice myself as well? And I'm like, no, I'm not. Okay, then. So I have work to do.
Hmm.
But that doesn't have to stop me from giving the advice to somebody else as well. It's not an ego game here. It's about being honest as well with somebody else as with yourself. And so, but that's a very difficult one for people to understand. My advantage is that I haven't been socially polluted for so many years like others because I've been alone. And the only one criticizing me and punishing me was myself, right? And
Yes.
so, but I had not the social cues and structures that everybody grew up has grown with day in day out. I didn't have that for 20 years. And so the social mask thing, like, oh, I need to be nice in order to be liked. I didn't need to do that, nor do I know any of that. Therefore, when I come from a place of honesty, it's truly coming from a place of the heart and honesty. First of all,
Absolutely.
I don't have anything to lose, but it's not that I come from that point of view either. But I'm not afraid to lose somebody either if they do get upset when I'm honest,
Exactly.
because I didn't have it in the first place. So what do I have to lose? And
Right.
that makes it a much easier for me to do it. But it does prove to me as well that you actually have real people around you. I love Mel to death, to pieces. You don't say to death, but to pieces. I love you to pieces. Doesn't mean I always agree with you both, or
Right.
that you guys can upset me. But at the end of the day, it's all about what's my part in this, right? What am I doing wrong? How can I adjust myself, or whatever. It's all about being real and honest, and that goes both ways all the time. And that is something that I've always had, only now I get other people in the equation, and then I get very a lot of uh I'm literally still learning doing social, because there is these things that you cannot say that, and I'm like, why can I say that? Because it's rude. What makes that rude by being honest? Well, because you just don't do that. Why don't you just do that? Oh, because you're not used to that people actually tell you what you think. Ah, is that how your world works? Is that how you want to live in that world? Because I don't. So I'd rather have you telling me the truth,
Yep.
spot on in my face, and I can think, am I doing that? And I literally think that, right? But there are so many social things that people do, and it goes so deep, right? Like, because it's rude. What does that even mean, rude? Rude is if I tell you that you're, this, and that, like name
Call you
calling.
names or whatever. Call you
Exactly.
names, right?
It's not rude that I tell you what I think you are doing or the truth, right? And and if not, correct me. But no, then people don't correct you because they cannot stand the truth and the honesty within the
Hmm.
conversation.
Hmm.
So, eventually they resort walking away. It's fear and discomfort can be a catalyst for our transformation. That is so true. Because at a certain point, um, like when the panic attacks start, when I said, maybe this is a lesson that I have to get through it once and for all. At
Hmm.
a certain point, you get so many panic attacks, you get exhausted.
Yeah.
And when you get exhausted, you get angry. And I'm so angry at these panic attacks that I'm like, okay, I can't do this anymore. I'm not doing this anymore. And then I'm always like, who am I fighting with exactly? Right? I'm fighting against my own ego. That's who am I fighting with.
Hmm.
And so don't be afraid to feel that fear and go through that fear till you're exhausted of fear.
Hmm.
And at a certain point, you're so angry with it. And then you're questioning yourself, who am I angry with? With myself. Who's myself? Because there's me and myself, and there's the I. And who's the I? Oh, the I is the ego, and the me, myself, is my higher self, right? So, so there is this devil angel constantly on your shoulder, having this dialogue with you, and then there's you, your 3D self, me, myself, and I, right?
Right.
And so I've encountered this in the past month so often that I'm like, who am I talking right now? Oh, it's my higher self. Oh, okay. Oh, this is my 3D self. Oh, that's my ego self, right? Like complete arguments with myself. And I'm like, why didn't I have that in the 20 years that I was by myself? Because now I'm being confronted with it when I'm out in the world. And so I wrote this blog for anybody who wants to check it out on my website. It's awakeningtohealing.com, Keystones Philosophy. That's my blog. And I wrote about it's called Questions, Questions, Questions. And I have a dialogue with my higher self and my ego and how I solve insecurities or issues. And then eventually I always wind up being, in fear or being insecure or, worrying about something. But it always comes down to me, myself. Although you try to, how do you say that? You try to put the blame outward in the outside world, but it's never in the outside world. It's always within yourself, no matter what you have going on in your life,
Hmm. Hmm.
negative,
Hmm. Hmm.
always within you. It's never in the outside world, right?
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. Because you are the projector of that reality. So it's always within you. All of it is within you. So
Yeah.
yes, you're fighting against you. But
Yeah, yeah.
again, it's that fear. That fear is what transformed you. That fear is what um, was the catalyst. Fear was the catalyst for you. Like Leyland says, the fear was the catalyst for you to become who you've become now. Like, again, when I think of you were this woman in your house, never went out, a woman that couldn't deal with people, and now you're in Mexico. Like, you've done more than I could have done. And that's why it's like, how is this possible that that she's gone to Mexico, she doesn't know anybody there, like, and I'm thinking, and this is someone who was in her house and couldn't get out of the house. And I'm just like, wow, like, wow, like, wow,
Well,
like,
it's not like I sat still while being in my house. I kept working on myself for the past 15 years. So, it all
yes,
started
but your
back.
fear of of people and not going out and just and out of the like, how is this possible that you're able to move to a place that you've never been to? That, I mean, at least I've been to Mexico, so at least I know sort of idea of what would wait for me there. Like, you totally went, like, I and still blows my mind because, Patricia, I couldn't have been able to do it. I'm having stress just moving to Cocoa Beach, which is 40 minutes away.
Oh, yeah. Well, because the fear is within me. You always take yourself with you. And I'm like, it really doesn't matter where you are in the world. You still take
Yeah.
yourself with you.
Yeah.
And because you take yourself with you, it really doesn't matter whether I'm being in fear in Amsterdam or whether I'm being in fear in Mexico. At the end of the day, it's all about how do I get through that fear? How can I get on the other side out of that fear? And then I'm like, by moving, and this is why I also made that little piece about the pendulum, right? Our life is like a pendulum, it swings every which way. But eventually, as long as we stay moving, we keep moving, no matter what direction, as long as you keep moving, there is change,
Yes.
always change. And so I just relied on that, because what else do you have, right? And
Wow.
so you have to keep moving forward, no matter the anxiety, no matter the, and it's crippling fear we're talking about here.
I know, trust me, I was there, and that's why my car got broken into, because I had lowered to such a place of fear, because I don't know where I'm going, Patricia. My house, I got to be out of my house in 2 weeks. I
What?
don't know where I'm going.
Wow. Well, you see that. Okay. Okay. This is lesson number one. First of all, just come from a place where, wait, this is the first thing I do. I've learned this in the past year. The first thing when something happens, literally, is the first thought I have: why is the universe giving me this? And
Oh,
you
yeah.
actually taught me that, because you, every time I came to you and I said, I cannot do this, you said, well, think about why this happened. Remember when I walked with my face into a door and
Yeah.
you said to me, well, think about why that happened. And I was like, well, because I'm not there. I'm not in the now moment, because I wasn't looking. And I'm like, oh, I'm not in the now moment. Wait, I'm not in the now moment. I am in a, no, I'm not. Right. And so you start doing this dialogue with yourself. And so now you have to ask the universe, why is this happening to you? Where's the fear coming from? What is the fear about? What are you really scared of? Is it
Exactly.
really about the house, or is it being scared of being independent or being different or doing whatever?
Right.
Right?
Yeah. Yeah.
It
Yeah. Yeah.
doesn't matter. The
Yep.
outcome is always about what is this fear about and how I'm going to conquer it.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. And I had to get into trust. That's what I decided to do. I'm like, I'm going to surrender, and I am going to I am going to trust the universe,
Yeah.
and something will happen, and I'm going to allow the magic to happen, because that's what happened with you. And
Yeah.
so I know that there is magic, and I know that. So I think the magic is starting to appear in front of me. So we will see. But yeah, trust me,
Well,
I've
I find it interesting because you were the one that always said that to me. And again, here we come back to practice what you preach, right? But you always find it later, because yes, you gave me great advice and it helped me immensely. And now you're standing in front of that door of your own advice, right?
yes, yeah,
And
yeah.
that's how it's supposed to be. It's not about who got there first and who learned the most. And no, it's not ego. It's about, when the student is ready, the teacher arrived. And once you were that teacher for me, and the next day I'm that teacher for you, and that goes both ways constantly. We're constantly students and teachers, and that's what this is about. It's not about ego, right? It's not about, yeah, well, you gave me that advice last year, so how come you didn't use that advice on yourself? No, that is not relevant at all, because it was good you gave me that advice because you were there for me.
Hmm. Hmm.
And yes, we are professional masochists. That's another thing that I learned while being in Mexico. I'm like, holy, because this town is full of loners. They all came here to change their life.
Ah,
And what I notice is, oh my God, we're all a bunch of masochists. We are all our own worst enemies. And you know what? We just need to learn to navigate this damn world in the new world. And the fact that I've been 20 years in my house, the fact that I came out now is because the great awakening is here.
yes,
Now
yes, yes,
the world was ready also to receive me now,
yes, yes,
because that's how I got to know all of you, wasn't it?
yes. Yeah, absolutely. And it also has to be to do with your vibration as well. I
Yeah.
feel like as we start releasing all these fears, that they're on purpose They're triggering us
Oh
on
man.
purpose so that we release this stuff and we can get to that higher place. We cannot get there with fear. You cannot ascend when you have fear because it doesn't exist there. So, it's almost like, here, get it out, get it out, get it out.
Yeah.
And don't let anything trip you. Just trust. And every time I trust, magic happens.
Right.
So, now I surrendered and I am just going with the flow, and I know I'll be taken care of. And that's it. It's almost like you said, right? Like you just like go, fuck it. Like you just don't care anymore. Like I
No,
just
because you get
surrender.
tired of actually
I
punishing.
surrender. I surrender.
You get literally tired of punishing yourself at a certain point. And I don't know if you guys all noticed this, but I've noticed this, many people that I've talked to, that the lessons are increasing in quantity and
The,
in
the lessons.
intensity. Yeah. So
Oh,
the intensity of your freaking shadow slapping you in the face over
oh my
and over
God.
and over and over. And you know why I think this is happening? Because we get to this point of exhaustion that we're like, okay, I'm fed up being in fear. I'm fed up being tired of myself, of punishing myself. I'm going to surrender. Because you know what? This is what we do. Think about how long we can keep that breath of not surrendering. That's how masochistic we are, right?
Yep.
And so the fact that it now amplifies faster and faster and faster
Yep.
and faster is because we are in need to be exhausted from ourselves
Yeah.
and from our fears,
Yes.
to the point that you say, damn it, I surrender. And what happens then? That's when the heavens open,
Yep.
because literally the moment you surrender, fear disappears.
Yep. Big time.
Beautiful.
Big time. And for me, it was when they broke into my car. They smashed the window into the car, took my purse, all my money, all my credit cards.
What?
And yeah,
I missed that all.
yes. So it was the universe going like, wake the fuck up. Your vibration is in the shit. You need to do something about it. And that's when I was like, that's when, like, that day in the afternoon, that evening, I was like, I surrender, I surrender, I surrender. Like, I got the point. I got the point. I'm not going
Yeah.
there anymore. The fear is done. I am done. I don't want that to happen again. And the universe had to like slap me in the face and go, you're done with this shit.
Yeah.
You're
Yeah.
done.
But can you see that we are the ones that actually are so exhausted? We exhausting ourselves. And that's when the moment of surrender comes, because I'm now at this point, I'm slapped in the face so many times with lessons, right? Oh, no internet. Oh, no aircon. Oh, I'm looking like a math addict. Oh my God. And storms and this and that. And it, because leaving Holland, coming to Mexico, oh, that was just a start. Yes, the universe made it a smooth path for me to get here. But that's when the lesson starts, when you arrive here. That's when you encounter all your shadows, that when you encounter all the fears. Because now it's not like, oh, you move to another country and all of a sudden your whole life is fixed. Oh, hell no. That's when you actually need to start doing the real work in action, right? And so
Yes.
you're exhausted by it. And that's why when
Exhausted.
your initial question was, so did you look back and say, oh, I did it? Oh, hell no. I'm like, oh yeah, I did it. Next thing. Oh yeah, I did it. Next thing. Until that moment that you say, what am I doing? Why am I constantly in survival mode? Stop.
Mm-hmm.
I'm exhausted of not looking back and saying, oh wow, I did that. Oh wow, I did that. Oh wow, I did that. No, it was every time. Next thing, next thing. And you know
Yeah.
what? The universe is going to throw you the next thing.
Yep. Absolutely.
You know?
Absolutely. So, um, again, I felt like this was something that we needed to share, because it's seriously, it's huge. It's huge.
It's,
And you need to pat yourself in the back. You need to really understand what you've done. and it's nothing but courageous and just being brave, and just it's just been amazing to see your journey. And again, you've taught me some things, and I your courage is just beautiful to see, really, truly. So I felt like it we I had I had we had to tell people all that you have gone through. It
Thank
was
you.
amazing.
And although I hear this over and over again from people, and I'm like, then why don't I feel that, right? Because I'm still in the middle of it, and that's okay. There will be a day I look back and I'm thinking, holy shit, I did all that. When you're in the middle of it, you're not. And yes, I hear you. I hear everybody when they say it, and thank you. It will arrive a bit later for me, right? It will land a little, because after all, I am masochist, let's face it. And
But don't put that energy out there,
no.
because you're going to create it. When you say the
Well,
words I am are very powerful, very
they are.
powerful.
They are.
So,
And
yeah.
but also looking it in the face that you are the masochist, it's okay to say to yourself, because you can only change it when you acknowledge it and accept that is. And that's another very important lesson I noticed, because it's very scary to look at what your weaknesses are. And and I'm like, I'm such a masochist, and I'm not telling myself, I'm observing I am, right? And so okay, so acknowledging it, and then you accept that I am doing that. So how am I going to change it? What am I going to do about it? And I'm like, yeah, I'm going to be less of a masochist right now, right? And that's how you do it.
Yes,
So it's
absolutely.
obviously I now mentioned it like jokingly, but this is what we do to ourselves every day.
Yes, it is. And I want you to always think of that little girl that's scared, and go back and keep her, just love her every day, nourish her, tell her everything's going to be okay, tell her everything that she's achieved, and keep talking to your inner child, because when you heal that inner child, this will go away. This will go away.
I
And I've
haven't
been
thought of
doing that. That's something I've been working on. In the morning, I look at my baby picture when I was like 2 years old. And I just like, what do you want to do today? What makes you happy? I love you. And I've been nourishing and nurturing that little girl.
Wow, that's such an
Yeah.
amazing advice. I haven't thought of that. And just as you say this, actually, it chokes me up, because I'm like, oh, wait, I forgot about that part. And, so, that's why we're there for each other, to always remind ourselves to certain things again, because, and you can say, oh, yeah, but, one time I knew about it, but the next time you're going to forget about it. And this is why
Hmm.
repetition is so important. It's so important that it doesn't matter how often we have to repeat it, just until you get it for
Yes.
yourself.
Yeah.
All we do is it for ourselves. And yeah, it's oh man, it's a journey, to say the least. And it only started just now, and I still need to start living,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
And but I'm getting there, and I know.
Yes, you are. You are. You are. And I can't wait till you're showing us all your fantastic dresses that you're coming up with. And it's just awesome. Just awesome.
Right, yeah, soon I have too little time in one day, I can't even keep up anymore.
That's awesome. I
But
love it.
I've missed everybody so much as well, being offline, but it was really necessary.
Yes.
And there you see that, because at a certain point I was so annoyed not having internet, and I was like, wait a minute, what if the universe is actually trying to teach me something here, what I'm not seeing, because I don't have internet? And that's when it kicked in, and all of a sudden I got it, and I'm like, oh, so I didn't do this for 2 years, I didn't do that for 2 years, all because I was constantly online. And before I was back into the virtual world, because that's where I started, in the virtual world. Before that, I was with myself. Yes, I had that fear, but you know what? I accepted what was, and fine. But that doesn't mean it has to stop me from learning things and
Hmm.
being happy all the way, and being with my cats. But then all of a sudden it was time for the cats to go and start a new well, not a new chapter, start a whole new freaking book. And
A whole
so
new life.
uh, a life to begin with, right? Because did I have a life? I did, but I didn't have a life with people in it. I was not living in the world. I was living on the outskirts of the world.
Yeah.
And so now I decided to live in the world, and it's still weird. It's very obviously I encountered the weirdest social things that people are like, wait, I've never heard about that, or somebody talk like that, and um, and then you have to tell them the story, right? About yeah, I haven't been in the world for 20 years, so uh, things that is so normal for most people, actually for everybody, is not normal for me.
Hmm.
So, uh, for example, somebody said to me, and apparently it's a figure of speech, so how did you get here? And I said, by airplane. No, I mean, how did you get here? I said, by airplane. And she meant, why did I get here? And I'm like, why didn't you use the word why? And she looked at me so like I was an alien, but in a way I am. And because I take things literally. And so if you ask me how I got here by plane. It's that simple. And the whole freaking bar was laughing about it.
Right. Yeah.
But they found it also interesting because they never thought about how we changed words to a point that they have no meaning anymore. And I'm
Hmm.
throwing that back in their face somehow because you ask me a question and I answer, right?
Yeah. I'm the same way.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and this is very much a very artistic trait is being literal, but we should be all literal because this is why we get miscommunications to begin with, right?
Hmm. Hmm.
But the fact that to them it was all a big joke, I did see them thinking like, hang on, I never thought about it that way, but yeah, that's it. You just assume,
Yeah. Yeah.
right?
Absolutely. Well, it has been just absolutely such a beautiful pleasure and honor to have you on. And again, I am so proud of where you are, really.
Yeah,
And it's I can just see your future, and it's gonna be amazing.
yeah.
It's already just amazing what you've done up to now. I can't even imagine what it's going to be within a year from now. You know?
Oh, me neither. I don't even dare saying that because I remember a year ago that I would say, "Oh, where would I be a year from now?" I could never ever imagine. Remember, all this started with a thought in April. But then again, isn't this an interesting thing to close off with? Everything starts with a thought,
Yes.
even our failures, you
Yes.
know, and our successes
Absolutely.
and our changes. Everything starts.
Absolutely. Absolutely. All right, everybody. Thank you so much for being here. For those that watch the video later, thank you also for watching. Don't forget to like the video and to check out Patricia's channel, the Keystone channel, as well on YouTube. All right,
Yeah.
everybody. Big hugs.
I love you all and thank you for being here. And thank you, Elisa, for having me.
Absolutely. Bye-bye, everybody.